The alien fleet ruled the darkness. More than 2,000 warships drifted in perfect formation around a dead yellow star. Their hulls were layered with weapons, shields, and ancient battle scars. This fleet had crushed rebellions, erased civilizations, and burned worlds into dust. No force in this sector could challenge them. This system was supposed to be empty. No planets worth taking. No resources worth mining. Just ruins. Old debris from a species the galaxy barely remembered anymore. Humans. They had been weak, loud, divided. They had fought hard, but they had lost. That was the story every empire agreed on. The fleet commander watched the scanners with boredom. Another routine patrol. Another quiet victory simply by existing. Then the sensors screamed. A single object appeared at the edge of the system. No warp flash. No energy surge. No warning. It was just there. The object did not move. It did not shine. It did not transmit. At first, the crew laughed. One ship, an officer said. Probably debris. Scanners locked on. The shape became clear. It was massive, longer than a battleship. Smooth, dark, and wrong. No visible engines. No glowing shields. No weapon ports. The computer could not classify it. The commander narrowed his eyes. Run a full scan. The results made no sense. No power core detected. No active systems. No materials. It looked dead. The bridge filled with low laughter again. A ghost ship. A relic drifting for centuries. A reminder of a failed species. The commander raised a claw. Fire a warning shot. One cruiser turned its cannons and fired a precise burst of plasma. The energy tore through space and vanished. Not blocked. Not deflected. Gone. The bridge fell silent. The mysterious ship did not react. No movement. No counterattack. The commander felt something cold coil in his chest. Fire again. Full salvo. Hundreds of weapons powered up across the fleet. Missiles, beams, kinetic rounds. Enough force to crack moons. They fired together. For half a second, space itself bent. Then the fleet died. Not exploded. Not burned. They were cut. Ships vanished along clean, impossible lines. Hulls separated like paper. Crews were erased before they could scream. Shields did nothing. Armor meant nothing. Entire squadrons disappeared as if they had never existed. There was no sound. No shockwave. Just absence. In less than a heartbeat, over 1,000 warships were gone. The bridge lights flickered. Consoles sparked. Officers froze in terror. What weapon was that? Someone whispered. The scanners showed nothing. No energy spike. No radiation. No trace of an attack. It was as if reality itself had been edited. The commander shouted, "Retreat. All ships, emergency jump, now." Before the order finished, another wave passed through the fleet. This time slowed. The commander saw nearby ships stretch and twist, trapped in frozen motion. Their crews were alive, aware, but unable to move. Screams filled the communication channels, locked in endless loops. The fleet broke formation in panic. Some ships escaped. Most did not. Only the flagship survived, drifting and broken, systems failing. And still, the lone warship had not moved. Finally, a signal arrived. Not an attack. A message. It came on every frequency at once. Clear. Calm. Old. The language was ancient, but the translation software recognized it immediately. Human. The voice was steady. Neither angry nor proud. Just tired. This system is closed. The commander stared at the display, shaking. Humans were dead. They had to be. The message continued. You were warned once. Long ago. You did not listen. The warship finally moved. Not forward. It phased, slipping sideways through space like it was stepping out of reality. Before vanishing, it sent one final line. We remember everything. Silence returned to the system. The proud fleet was gone. And across the galaxy, alarms began to ring. Because humanity was not extinct. Humanity was back. The surviving flagship drifted for hours before its engines responded. Its once proud hull was torn and twisted, emergency lights flickering like dying stars. Entire sections were sealed off, not because of fire or explosions, but because space itself had folded wrong inside them. Some corridors were stretched long beyond reason. Others ended abruptly, as if reality had been cut with a blade. The commander sat alone on the bridge. Most of the crew was gone. Not dead, missing. Their life signs had vanished in the same instant their ships had. No debris. No bodies. Just empty sensor readings where thousands of lives used to be. The commander replayed the battle again and again. There was no pattern. No warning. No detectable weapon. Only result. When the emergency jump finally engaged, the flagship vanished from the dead system and reappeared deep inside Allied territory. The moment it arrived, distress signals flooded the network. What attacked you? Who did this? Was it a new empire? The commander did not answer immediately. When he finally spoke, his voice shook. It was one ship, he said. Human. The response was silence. Then laughter. That reaction spread across the network. Mocking clicks. Disbelief. Even relief. Humans were myths. A footnote in history. A species that burned bright and died fast. No one took them seriously anymore. Until the sensor data arrived. Battle recordings. Time distortions. Entire fleets erased without energy signatures. The laughter stopped. Emergency councils formed within hours. Ancient chambers that had not been used in centuries filled with leaders, generals, and scientists. Holograms flickered as representatives argued, denied, and shouted. This is impossible, one said. Human technology was inferior. They barely mastered interstellar travel. They lost every major war. The commander stood at the center of it all, projecting the final message. This system is closed. No threats. No demands. Just certainty. A senior archivist finally spoke. Her voice was slow and careful. We may have misread human history, she said. She activated ancient records, data few bothered to study anymore. Images filled the chamber. Human colonies burning. Fleets outnumbered 10 to 1. Last stands around dying stars. Soldiers holding lines long after defeat was guaranteed. They lost, someone said. Yes, the archivist replied. But look how. The footage showed humans evacuating civilians under fire, overloading reactors to delay enemy advances, sacrificing entire worlds to buy time. They did not fight to win, she continued. They fought to last. The room grew quiet. Another record appeared, classified, incomplete. A final human transmission, sent shortly before their last known defeat. We are not gone. We are learning. The transmission ended abruptly. At the time, it had been dismissed as defiance. Now it felt like a warning. Scientists began tearing through the battle data. They searched for exotic particles, unknown radiation, anything that explained what had happened. They found nothing. One analyst finally leaned back in horror. The ship didn't fire a weapon, he said. The chamber froze. What do you mean? A warlord demanded. It didn't project energy, the analyst replied. It changed conditions. Local constants. Gravity vectors. Time flow. He swallowed. It rewrote physics. That should have been impossible. Every advanced race obeyed the same rules. Same limits. Same laws. Humans did not. More reports arrived from border systems. Old human markers reactivated. Deep space relays long believed dead suddenly transmitting silent pings. Navigation buoys shifting position overnight. Human infrastructure was waking up. Not building. Revealing itself. A scout fleet was dispatched to investigate a nearby abandoned human system. It returned 6 hours later. Only one ship made it back. Its captain was screaming. He spoke of shadows moving without mass, of stars dimming when scanned, of invisible borders that forced ships to turn back or be torn apart. The captain repeated one phrase over and over. They were watching us the whole time. Fear spread faster than any fleet. Trade routes closed. Armies recalled. Old enemies declared sudden truces. No one wanted to be next. Then the message arrived. This time, it was not confined to one system. It reached half the galaxy. Every major relay lit up at once. Screens filled with the same simple symbol, an old human mark for attention. The voice that followed was not synthetic. It was human, calm, controlled, deep with age. We did not return for revenge, the voice said. We returned because you did not change. Images followed. Worlds stripped bare. Civilizations enslaved. Species erased for resources or convenience. Long ago, the voice continued, you judged us weak. You were right. The speaker paused. We were weak. We learned. The message showed humans leaving the galaxy, vast arcs vanishing into dark space. Not fleeing. Choosing exile. We chose survival over pride, the voice said. You chose conquest over mercy. The final image was simple. A map. Human-controlled zones glowed faintly, small, scattered, but expanding. These regions are closed, the voice concluded. Enter them, and you will be removed. No threats, no anger, just fact. The transmission ended. The galaxy did not sleep that cycle. Military doctrines were rewritten overnight. Weapons programs were abandoned as useless. Scientists admitted, quietly, that they did not understand what humans had become. One truth became impossible to ignore. The humans were not building an empire. They were setting boundaries. And for the first time in recorded history, the galaxy understood fear, not of destruction, but of judgment. Far beyond known space, the mysterious warship reappeared. It was not damaged, not hurried. Inside, a human observer watched the data streams with tired eyes. Another test complete. Another warning delivered. The observer marked the fleet encounter as minimal response. Then he looked toward the deeper dark, toward places even the galaxy did not know existed, and prepared for what would come next. The galaxy tried to understand. That was its first mistake. Across thousands of worlds, the greatest minds gathered, scientists who bent stars, historians who cataloged extinct gods, strategists who had never lost a war. They all stared at the same data and reached the same impossible conclusion. Humanity no longer followed the rules. They had not advanced faster. They had not built bigger weapons. They had stepped sideways out of the limits everyone else still obeyed. Deep inside the core archives, a sealed chamber was opened for the first time in 400 years. The air inside was stale, untouched. The records within were forbidden, files collected during the final wars against humanity. Back then, humans had begged for alliances. They had offered technology, labor, even territory. They were refused. Too unstable, too emotional, too dangerous if given power. So the galaxy had crushed them instead. A historian activated the oldest file. A recording appeared, a human woman, wounded, standing on the bridge of a dying ship. Smoke filled the air. Alarm screamed. She looked directly into the camera. "You think this ends us," she said calmly. "It doesn't." The recording ended with static. At the time, it had been mocked. Now no one laughed. A physicist spoke, her voice barely steady. Their ship did not use force. It removed permission. The others turned toward her. "What permission?" a general demanded. "The universe's," she replied. She expanded the battle data. Mathematical models bloomed across the air, collapsing as fast as they formed. "They found the seams," she said. "The assumptions we never questioned. The constants we treated as laws." She looked up slowly. Humans discovered that reality only behaves because everything agrees it should. Silence followed. That idea was heresy, madness. And yet, the fleet was gone. Meanwhile, far from the councils and archives, a small alien transport drifted near a closed human zone. Its captain was young, curious, and desperate. His world was dying, its star unstable, its people starving. He had heard the warnings. He crossed the border anyway. Nothing happened. No alarms. No attacks. The stars looked the same. Then his ship stopped responding. Not disabled. Paused. The captain could still think. Still see. Still feel his heart pounding. But time outside his vessel slowed to a crawl. A human figure appeared on his display. Not transmitted, but present. Like a reflection that should not exist. The figure looked human, but altered. Eyes dark with depth. Skin marked with faint, shifting patterns, like equations written beneath flesh. "You are not here to conquer," the human said. The captain tried to speak. His mouth would not move. "You are here because your people are dying," the human continued. "And you believe we will save them." The captain felt a crushing shame. "Yes," the human said gently. "We will." The image changed. The captain saw his home system, already surrounded by human structures he had never detected. Stellar stabilizers, climate engines, silent machines holding a star together. "We have been helping quietly," the human said. "Where we can." The captain's ship was released. Time snapped back into place. Before the human vanished, it left one final message. "Do not mistake our restraint for weakness." The transport fled. The story spread anyway. Across the galaxy, similar encounters were whispered about. Ships stopped and released. Worlds quietly repaired overnight. Pirates vanished without wreckage. Slavers never returned. Humanity was acting, but never loudly. The councils debated what to do next. Some argued for diplomacy. Others demanded a preemptive strike first, before humans decided restraint was no longer worth it. A coalition was formed, the largest since the ancient wars. This time, they would not underestimate one ship. They would bring everything. Deep in intergalactic space, inside a structure that did not exist on any map, humans watched the preparations. The chamber was vast, curved like the inside of a sphere, its walls alive with shifting stars and flowing data. Figures stood in silence, not quite physical, not entirely abstract. They were human, or what humanity had become. One observer broke the silence. "They are afraid," she said. "They should be," another replied. "But fear alone does not teach." A third figure turned, his voice heavy with memory. "We gave them time. Centuries. They chose the same path every time." Images filled the chamber, rising empires, fallen species, endless cycles of domination. "They will attack," someone said. "Yes," the first observer replied, "because they believe force is still the highest language." She paused. "Let them speak it." Preparations began, not for war, but for demonstration. Human systems adjusted probabilities, realigned causality, defined regions where outcomes were no longer random. They were not aiming to destroy the coalition fleet. They were aiming to educate it. Back in known space, the coalition armada launched. Millions of ships, ancient relics and modern weapons side by side. Enough firepower to sterilize star clusters. They advanced toward the nearest closed zone. Commanders reassured their crews. "This is impossible technology," they said. "Nothing is invincible." The fleet crossed the boundary. Nothing happened. Relief spread. Then the stars changed color. Navigation systems disagreed with each other. Timestamps desynced. Weapons reported ready, but refused to fire. The armada continued forward. Then one ship vanished. No explosion. Just gone. Then another. Then entire formations. Panic spread as crews realized something horrifying. Their ships were not being destroyed. They were being excluded, removed from the chain of cause and effect. The human voice returned, echoing across every channel. "You believe power is the ability to take," it said. A pause. "You are wrong." Entire battle groups froze, trapped between moments. Commanders screamed orders that never reached their crews. "We learned long ago," the voice continued, "that the greatest strength is the ability to decide what matters." At the center of the fleet, the coalition flagship remained free, deliberately spared. A final message appeared on its bridge. "You will remember this," the human said, "and you will tell the others." The frozen ships remained, intact, eternal monuments to a failed choice. The rest of the fleet was released and forced to retreat. No pursuit followed. Back in the human chamber, observers watched in silence. "Lesson delivered," someone said. "For now," another replied. The first observer looked toward the deep dark again, beyond the galaxy, beyond known threats. "Prepare the sentinels," she said softly. "Something else has noticed us." And far away, in a place without stars, something ancient stirred, drawn by the first true change the universe had felt in a very long time. The galaxy reeled, but it did not break. Not yet. The coalition fleet returned in pieces, ships scattered across space, crews shaken, commanders silent. The frozen armada remained where it was, suspended forever at the edge of the closed zone. No one could reach it. No one could destroy it. No one could even fully observe it. It was a warning carved into reality. But warnings fade. Fear fades. And old instincts return. In hidden chambers and sealed systems, leaders asked the same question in different words. What did it cost them? Because nothing like this came for free. A secret effort began, not to fight humanity, but to understand the road that led to them. Deep intelligence dives uncovered fragments long ignored. Broken human archives. Lost transmissions. Data once labeled irrelevant because it spoke of failure instead of victory. Now, failure was the key. The story that emerged was not glorious. It was horrifying. Humanity had not escaped extinction. They had gone through it. Long ago, when the galaxy closed its doors, humans fought wars they could not win. They learned quickly that strength was temporary. Fleets burned. Worlds fell. Allies betrayed them the moment survival demanded it. So humans adapted. Not technologically at first. Mentally. They stopped asking how to win battles. They started asking how to survive loss. Entire generations were raised knowing their world might not exist tomorrow. Children learned evacuation drills before they learned history. Scientists worked on projects they knew they might never see finished. And still, it was not enough. The final wars came fast, coordinated, brutal. Human defenses failed. Their last colonies burned. Their species was declared extinct by galactic consensus. That was the moment humanity made its real choice. They abandoned the idea of saving everyone. They chose to save meaning. Records showed it clearly now. In the final days, humanity executed something no other species had ever considered. They broke themselves apart. Not physically, conceptually. Humanity split into layers. One layer fled, arcs carrying bodies, cultures, and memory into deep space. Slow, quiet, vulnerable. Another layer stayed behind. Not fleets, not armies. Observers. Volunteers who uploaded themselves into experimental structures. Partial minds, stripped of identity, bound to purpose. Sentinels. They were never meant to fight wars. They were meant to watch. And when the arcs reached the dark between galaxies, humanity did something even more dangerous. They began to change. The arcs did not seek planets. They sought conditions. Regions where physics behaved differently, where constants drifted, where reality was flexible. Most species avoided those places. Humans went there on purpose. What followed was centuries of suffering. The records were incomplete, corrupted by time and intentional deletion. But enough remained. Human minds stretched beyond biology began to fail. Bodies broke under laws they were never meant to endure. Entire generations were lost to experiments that did not work. But each failure taught something. Humans learned that intelligence was not tied to flesh. That identity could be shared. That time could be negotiated. They stopped asking the universe what was allowed. They started asking what was possible if you were willing to pay. And they paid. With lives. With memories. With parts of themselves they could never get back. The councils saw the truth too late. Human power was not stolen. It was earned in blood and patience and unbearable restraint. Back in known space, the consequences spread. Pirate empires collapsed overnight. Not destroyed, just gone. Slave worlds were liberated without celebration. Their chains failed. Their overseers vanished. Humanity did not announce these actions. They did not claim credit. But survivors knew. Some worlds began to worship them. That disturbed the humans most of all. Inside the unseen structures beyond space, human observers debated. Fear was expected, one said. Dependence was not. We cannot become gods, another replied. That path ends the same way every time. A third figure, older than the rest, watched a feed of liberated worlds. They will try to follow us, he said quietly. Yes, the first observer agreed. And they will fail. Should we stop them? The elder shook his head. No, but we must remind them what this cost. And so, humanity did something unexpected. They opened a door. Not physically, historically. Across the galaxy, encrypted data caches unlocked simultaneously. Archives once thought corrupted suddenly became readable. They told the human story, not the victories, the losses. Entire planets sacrificed to delay an enemy advance by minutes. Fleets ordered to hold impossible lines knowing rescue would never come. Children sent into cryosleep with no promise of waking. One recording spread faster than the rest. A human commander, centuries dead, addressing her crew before a final stand. We are not dying so others can remember our names, she said. We are dying so someone, someday, has the chance to choose better. Her ship never returned. The message ended. The galaxy was silent. For the first time, other species understood the depth of the human warning. This power was not a gift. It was a scar. But scars invite predators. Beyond the edges of known space, something else had been watching. Not empires. Not councils. Something older. It noticed the same thing everyone else did, the rules changing. Where humanity acted, probability stabilized. Chaos reduced. Outcomes became predictable in strange ways. To the ancient thing drifting between galaxies, that was intolerable. It fed on uncertainty. It thrived on collapse. Humanity's presence was irritating. The thing shifted, vast and patient. It did not hate humans. It was curious. And curiosity, for something like that, was deadly. Back in human space, alarms sounded for the first time in centuries. Not loud. Subtle. Observers turned as one toward a region beyond the galactic rim. Data streams twisted. Simulations failed. Something was pressing against the edges of defined reality. The elder observer spoke, voice calm but heavy. "We have been noticed." The chamber stilled. "By what?" someone asked. The elder did not answer immediately. "By something that existed before choice," he said at last. "Before cause." Silence followed. Another observer clenched her fists. "Are we ready?" "No," the elder replied honestly. A pause. "But we never were before, either." Human systems shifted priorities. Sentinels reoriented. Closed zones tightened. For the first time since their return, humanity prepared not to teach, but to defend. And far away, in the deep dark, the ancient thing began to move toward the galaxy, drawn by the only force it did not fully understand. Humanity. The alarms did not sound like alarms. That was the first sign something was wrong. Across human-controlled regions, systems reported inconsistencies. Not failures, not attacks, but drift. Probability curves loosened. Cause and effect chains frayed at the edges. Events still happened, but their certainty weakened. For most species, this would have gone unnoticed. For humans, it was terrifying. Inside the observation structures beyond space, the sentinels gathered. Data streamed around them like living smoke. Stars flickered in and out of projection. Timelines overlapped, then corrected themselves. "The boundary is being tested," one observer said. "No," another replied quietly. "It's being fed on." They did not need to name the thing approaching. The simulations already showed its shape, not in mass or form, but in behavior. Wherever it passed, outcomes multiplied. Futures split wildly. Systems collapsed not from force, but from too many possibilities at once. It was not an enemy that attacked. It was an enemy that unmade certainty. The elder observer watched the data with a grim calm. "It does not see us as prey," he said. "It sees us as friction." Humanity had done what nothing else ever had. They had stabilized parts of the universe. And something ancient hated that. At the edge of the galaxy, the first contact occurred. Not a battle, a failure. A sentinel vanished. Not destroyed, not erased, disconnected. Its link to the human network snapped without warning. The region it monitored dissolved into chaotic noise, stars flickering between existence and absence, planets briefly duplicating before collapsing back into one. The observers froze. "That's not possible," one said. "Sentinels are anchored outside normal causality." The elder nodded slowly. "Which means it found a way around anchors." For the first time in centuries, humanity had lost something. The loss rippled outward. Closed zones flickered. Human-maintained systems required manual correction. The quiet balance humanity had imposed began to strain. And the galaxy noticed. Alien sensors picked up the instability immediately. Trade routes shifted unpredictably. Jump calculations failed. Stars behaved strangely near human borders. Fear returned. But this time, it was different. This time, the fear was not of humanity. It was fear for them. Emergency councils reconvened. Former enemies sat side by side, watching live feeds of reality misbehaving near human space. One scientist spoke what no one wanted to admit. "If the humans are struggling," she said, "then whatever they are facing is beyond us." Another voice answered, bitter and afraid. "Then we are already dead." The ancient thing did not rush. It drifted, slow and curious, brushing against systems like a hand through water. Wherever it passed, history became uncertain. Old events shifted subtly. Small changes compounded. A world humanity had stabilized for decades suddenly lost its star. Not exploded. Forgotten. As if the star had never been there at all. The humans reacted instantly. They did not attack. They contained. Entire regions were isolated, cut out of navigation, communication, even memory. Sentinels repositioned, weaving layers of reinforced causality like armor. The elder observer finally spoke the words no one else would. "We cannot protect everything." Silence followed. "We built our strength to stop empires," he continued. "To stop cruelty. To stop predictable evil." He gestured to the chaos beyond the rim. "This is not evil. This is nature, older than intention." One observer turned sharply. "Then why does it target our work?" "Because our work interferes," the elder replied. "We impose meaning. It dissolves it." For the first time since their return, humanity faced a choice with no clean answer. Fight, and risk tearing the universe apart in the process. Or retreat, and let the galaxy drown in uncertainty. They chose a third option. They chose to bleed. The first human countermeasure was visible to everyone. A closed zone collapsed. Deliberately. Human systems withdrew from an entire sector, pulling out stabilizers, sentinels, and probability anchors. The region was left raw, wild, unstable, unpredictable. The ancient thing drifted toward it immediately. It fed, and in doing so, it revealed itself. Not a body, not a shape, a pattern. Alien scientists stared in horror as the data clarified. It's a convergence predator, one whispered. It consumes structured outcomes. The thing was drawn to places where cause and effect were strong. Human space was irresistible. The collapse bought time, but at a cost. Millions of lives were lost in the abandoned sector. Worlds destabilized. Civilizations vanished into branching timelines that never reconnected. The galaxy watched humanity make the same choice it once mocked them for. Sacrifice. Human transmissions finally went public again. Not warnings. Not commands. Confessions. We cannot stop this alone, the human voice said across the relays. And we will not pretend otherwise. The admission stunned the galaxy. Humans, admitting limits. We will hold it back, the message continued. But only by giving it what it wants. Images followed, closed zones thinning. Human structures dimming. Power being released instead of applied. We will weaken ourselves, the voice said, so that the universe does not break, trying to resist us. Outrage erupted. You're abandoning us. You caused this. Your gods, fix it. The human response was quiet. We were never gods, the voice said. We were survivors. Then the message changed tone. But survival is not a solo act. For the first time, humanity asked for something. Not obedience. Participation. They shared fragments of their knowledge, not the power to rewrite reality, but the understanding of how to respect it, how to build systems that bent without breaking, how to stabilize worlds without dominating them. Most species recoiled. The knowledge was terrifying. Some refused outright. Others hesitated. A few, very few, stepped forward. Engineers, mathematicians, cultures that had survived near extinction themselves. They listened. They learned. They helped. Together, they built something new. Not a wall, a buffer. Regions where chaos could exist without spreading. Where uncertainty could burn itself out harmlessly. It was imperfect, slow, painful. The ancient thing pushed back. Another sentinel fell. This one screamed, not in sound, but in data, flooding the human network with impossible states before dissolving. The elder observer closed his eyes. How many can we lose? Someone asked. The elder opened them again, tired but resolute. As many as it takes, he said, because that was the final truth the galaxy began to understand. Humanity's power was never invulnerability. It was endurance. They could be hurt. They could lose. They could bleed reality itself. And they would still stand in the way, not because they believed they would win, but because someone had to hold the line. Far beyond the rim, the ancient thing slowed. For the first time in eons, it encountered resistance that did not collapse or flee. It did not understand sacrifice, but it was learning. And so was the galaxy. Because if humanity could suffer, could weaken themselves, could choose loss again, then maybe, just maybe, they were still fighting for everyone else. The galaxy changed its behavior. Not slowly, not carefully. It changed overnight. Worlds that had once hidden behind human closed zones began evacuations. Fleets repositioned not to attack, but to avoid. Entire civilizations realized the same brutal truth at the same time. If humanity fell, nothing else would stop what was coming. But fear does not always become courage. In many systems, it became selfishness. Supply convoys meant for the shared buffer zones were rerouted to protect home worlds. Research teams withdrew, unwilling to risk their brightest minds. Governments issued quiet orders to preserve their own populations first. Humanity noticed. They said nothing. Inside the structures beyond space, the observers watched the data streams thin. Contributions slowed. Cooperation fractured. The buffer zones weakened where shared support vanished. One observer slammed a projection away in frustration. They're retreating. Yes, another replied softly. They always do, when the cost becomes real. The elder observer did not look away from the deep dark feeds. Do not judge them too harshly, he said. We once did the same. Silence followed. But, he continued, that does not change the outcome. The ancient thing pressed closer. With every cycle, its influence expanded. Regions near the rim began to suffer cascading uncertainty. Entire histories rewrote themselves in small but devastating ways. A species woke to find they had never developed spaceflight. A star empire discovered its founding planet no longer existed. A war ended differently, its consequences rippling outward into chaos. These were not attacks. They were side effects. Reality unraveling where certainty was stressed too far. The buffer zone strained. Human sentinels worked without pause, sacrificing identity and memory to maintain coherence. Some burned out entirely, minds collapsing under the weight of too many competing outcomes. For the first time, humanity faced a hard limit. They could not hold everything. A decision point arrived, not announced, not dramatic, just inevitable. The elder observer gathered the remaining sentinels. "We are approaching failure conditions," he said calmly. No one argued. "Our current strategy delays collapse, but guarantees exhaustion." A younger observer spoke, voice tight. "Then we pull back further, reduce coverage, and leave more of the galaxy exposed." Another replied. "Yes," the younger one said, "so that we survive." The word lingered. Survive. It was the word humanity had built everything on. The elder observer closed his eyes for a moment. "When we left the galaxy," he said, "we promised ourselves one thing." He opened them again, that we would never abandon it the way it abandoned us. No one spoke. The ancient thing surged forward, testing the weakened buffers. Several fractured at once. Human systems screamed warnings, collapse probabilities spiking. Time was gone. The elder observer made the call. "We withdraw all sentinels from the inner buffers," he said. Shock rippled through the chamber. "That will expose dozens of populated sectors." "Yes," he replied. "For a short time." "And the ancient thing?" someone demanded. The elder turned toward the deepest projections, the heart of the instability. "We meet it directly." The chamber froze. "That's suicide," one observer whispered. The elder nodded. "Yes." The plan spread instantly through human networks. For the first time since their return, humanity abandoned strategy. They chose confrontation. Sentinels disengaged from buffer maintenance and converged toward a single region beyond the galactic rim, a place where reality was already thin, already unstable. Alien sensors went blind as human structures moved in ways that could not be tracked. Panic erupted across the galaxy. What are the humans doing? They're pulling back. The buffers are failing. For the first time, human space shrank visibly. Worlds once stabilized flickered. Jump routes collapsed. Chaos spread in widening ripples. Outrage replaced fear. "They're sacrificing us to save themselves." They lied. They were never guardians. Humanity did not respond. They were busy preparing to die. At the convergence zone, sentinels assembled, thousands of partial minds, layered consciousnesses, fragments of people who had once lived entire lives. This was not a fleet. There were no ships. This was humanity, stripped to intent. The ancient thing arrived, not with force, with pressure. Probability shattered on contact. Futures branched wildly. The very idea of sequence, before and after, began to blur. Sentinels failed instantly. Dozens unraveled, their anchors overwhelmed. The elder observer felt the loss ripple through the network like screams. "Hold," he said quietly. Humanity did not attack. They anchored. They took every certainty they had ever built, every law they had reinforced, and focused it inward. They made themselves heavy, so heavy that the ancient thing could not pass through them without resistance. It reacted. For the first time, the convergence predator showed something like intent. It pushed. Reality bent violently. Sentinels dissolved under the strain. Human constructs cracked, shedding layers of memory and identity. The elder observer felt himself thinning. "You will not take the galaxy," he said, not aloud, but as a statement woven into causality itself. The ancient thing pushed harder, and humanity began to lose. Across the galaxy, the effects were immediate. Buffer zones failed completely. Entire regions plunged into chaos. Worlds disappeared. Histories rewrote themselves faster than anyone could track. The accusations grew louder. Humanity has failed. They couldn't stop it. We're doomed. Then something unexpected happened. A small species, one of the first to accept human knowledge, activated their own stabilizers. Crude, weak, but aligned. Another followed. Then another. Across the galaxy, scattered civilizations made the same choice. They stopped waiting. They helped. Their efforts were imperfect, but they mattered. Because the ancient thing noticed. The convergence predator fed on concentrated certainty. Humanity had been its primary target. Now, that certainty was spreading, thin, fragile, but everywhere. The pressure on the Sentinels eased, just slightly. Enough. The elder observer felt it. Now, he said, humanity changed tactics. They did something no one expected. They let go. They released the anchor. For a single, impossible moment, humanity stopped enforcing reality. The ancient thing surged forward eagerly and fell into the gap. The convergence zone collapsed inward, folding uncertainty into itself, not destroying the ancient thing, but isolating it. Trapped in a region with no stable outcomes to feed on. A cage made of chaos. The cost was immediate. Nearly half of the Sentinels were gone. Not dead. Unrecoverable. The elder observer barely held his form together as systems stabilized. Across the galaxy, the chaos slowed. Not ended. Slowed. Worlds reappeared, damaged, altered, but real. Histories locked into place again. The threat was contained. At a terrible price. Humanity broadcast one final message. We have held it. The voice said, strained but steady. For now, no triumph. No pride. We cannot do this again. Silence followed. Then, quietly, responses began to arrive. Offers of support, of shared defense, of rebuilding, not under human rule, but alongside them. For the first time, the galaxy did not ask humanity to save them. They asked how to stand with them. Inside the damaged observation structure, the elder observer allowed himself a moment of rest. They had stood alone, long enough, and now, at last, they would not have to anymore. The galaxy did not celebrate. There were no victory songs, no monuments raised in triumph. No one declared an end to the crisis, because everyone could feel the truth pressing down on them. This was not over. The ancient thing was contained, not destroyed. Trapped in a cage of instability that could not last forever. Every scientist who studied the data reached the same conclusion. Containment was temporary. Release was inevitable. And when that happened, the universe would remember. Across known space, systems struggled to recover. Trade routes had shifted. Histories no longer matched records. Some species found entire generations missing. People who had existed before the chaos but were now only memories without proof. Humanity did not offer comfort. They offered work. The shared stabilizer network expanded slowly. Painfully. Humans guided others in building anchors that did not dominate reality, but supported it. Structures that accepted uncertainty instead of trying to erase it. Progress was uneven. Mistakes were common. Some worlds collapsed again and were lost forever. Each loss carved deeper into the collective consciousness of the galaxy. Inside human space, the cost was worse. Nearly half the Sentinels were gone. Those that remained were damaged, fragmented minds missing entire segments of identity. Some could no longer remember their original lives. Others could not distinguish between past, present, and probability. Humanity had always accepted sacrifice. But this was different. This loss could not be replaced. The elder observer walked through a memory chamber, one of the few places that still resembled something human. Ghostly projections of lives once lived flickered along the curved walls. Families, cities, oceans, laughter, sentinels that would never return. A younger observer followed him, silent for a long time before speaking. Was it worth it? The elder did not answer immediately. Every species we saved will say yes, the younger one continued. Every world that still exists will agree. He hesitated. But what about us? The elder stopped. He looked at a projection of Earth, blue, fragile, and impossibly distant. We stopped asking that question a long time ago, he said quietly. The younger observer clenched his hands. Then maybe we should start again. The words hung in the air, dangerous and necessary. For centuries, humanity had defined itself by endurance, by the willingness to bear any cost if it meant survival for others. But now, the galaxy was no longer helpless. Now, they were learning. And humanity was exhausted. Reports arrived from the outer buffers. Stabilizer networks were holding, but only because dozens of non-human civilizations were actively maintaining them. Humans provided guidance, but no longer carried the full load. That should have been a relief. Instead, it was terrifying. Because it meant humanity was no longer indispensable. And that raised a question no one had dared ask before. What was humanity for, if not to hold the line? The ancient thing stirred within its chaotic prison. Subtle movements, small fluctuations, enough to remind everyone it was still there. The cage would not last forever. Every projection showed the same future. When it escaped, the shared stabilizers would fail. Not because they were poorly built, but because they were not unified. The galaxy was cooperating, but still divided. Still fragmented by fear, culture, and old instincts. Humanity understood the problem instantly. They had been here before. This was the same pattern that had doomed them centuries ago. Too many voices. Too many priorities. Too little trust. A summit was called. Not a council. Not a negotiation. An invitation. Every major civilization received the same message. Short, simple, unmistakably human. We will not command you. We will not rule you. But if we are to survive what comes next, we must choose together. The location of the summit shocked everyone. Not a human stronghold, not a neutral system, but the convergence zone itself. The edge of the ancient thing's prison. Many refused immediately. Others hesitated. A few remembered the frozen fleets, the collapsing worlds, the sacrifices humanity had made. They came. The summit was not held in a chamber or a station. It existed in a controlled pocket of space. Barely stable, constantly reinforced by human and non-human anchors alike. Representatives arrived cautiously, surrounded by guards and fail-safes. At the center of it all stood no throne, no flag, only a human figure, unaugmented, unarmed, physically fragile compared to many of those present. The elder observer had chosen to appear in full form for the first time in centuries. "I will not lie to you," he said, his voice carrying without amplification. "We are running out of time." No one interrupted. "The thing contained here will escape," he continued. "Not today, not tomorrow, but it will." Murmurs spread. "We can hold it back again," he said. "But not alone, and not by sacrificing ourselves the way we did before." A representative from a powerful empire stepped forward. "You ask us to unify," they said. "Under whose authority?" The elder shook his head. "None." Confusion rippled through the gathering. "We tried empires," he said. "They failed. We tried guardianship. That nearly broke us." He gestured to the stabilizer networks projected around them. "This is not about control. It's about responsibility." Another voice rose. "And if we refuse?" The elder met their gaze calmly. "Then we will still stand," he said. "But we will not stand forever." Silence followed. Then, unexpectedly, a small species spoke, one barely spacefaring, nearly erased during the chaos. "We don't want you to save us," their representative said softly. "We want to stand where you stand." The words struck harder than any threat. One by one, others spoke. Not promises of loyalty, promises of effort. Shared protocols, shared risk, shared failure. It was messy, emotional, fractured. Humanity did not guide the discussion. They listened, and for the first time, they heard something new. Not fear, not dependence, resolve. The decision that emerged was not clean or perfect, but it was real. A unified response, not a single command structure, but a commitment. Every participating civilization would integrate stabilizer principles into their own systems. Not copied from humanity, but adapted, understood, and maintained locally. The goal was not to cage the ancient thing again. It was to make the universe resilient enough that it no longer mattered. Humanity warned them of the cost. Many accepted anyway. Preparation began immediately. Across the galaxy, infrastructure shifted. Fleets stood down, resources redirected from weapons to anchors and buffers. Old rivalries flared, then cooled under the weight of necessity. It was slow, too slow. Inside the convergence zone, the ancient thing pressed harder. Cracks spread through its prison, small but growing. Human sentinels strained to compensate, their damaged minds pushed beyond safe limits. The elder observer felt the familiar pull of sacrifice rising again. He resisted it. "We will not do this alone," he reminded himself. The galaxy's first unified stabilizer array activated near the rim. It failed within minutes. Not catastrophically, but enough to send shockwaves through morale. Doubt returned. Maybe we can't do this. Maybe humanity should take over again. Maybe it's already too late. The elder observer addressed the galaxy one final time before the next breach. You will fail, he said plainly. Again and again. He paused. So did we. The words carried something humanity had not shared before. Not power. Perspective. We are not special because we succeeded, he continued. We are special because we endured failure without surrendering our values. The transmission ended. The ancient thing surged, its prison fracturing visibly now. The next breach would be large, possibly fatal. Humanity took their positions, not at the front, not at the center, but among the others. No longer guardians above the galaxy, just one species standing inside it. The universe trembled, and for the first time since humanity returned, the outcome was not theirs to decide alone. The next moment would define everything, not by how much power humanity had left, but by whether the galaxy had finally learned what humanity paid to teach. The breach began as a whisper, not a sound, not a flash, just a wrongness spreading through the convergence zone. The stabilizer arrays trembled. Probability values slipped out of alignment. Futures that had been carefully balanced began to fan outward like cracks in glass. The ancient thing pressed against its prison. This time, it did not test. It committed. Across the galaxy, alarms finally screamed. Not human alarms, shared ones. Systems built by dozens of civilizations lit up at once, their warnings overlapping, contradicting, correcting each other in real time. The universe was about to decide whether it could hold. At the edge of the convergence zone, human sentinels took their places among alien constructs and shared anchors. No central command, no single voice, only alignment. The elder observer felt the strain immediately. The damaged parts of his mind screamed as probability surged. He could feel the ancient thing now, not as an enemy, but as a force of nature pushing to return the universe to something simpler, something emptier. It did not hate them. It did not understand them. It only knew that structured meaning was inconvenient. The prison fractured. A section collapsed inward, releasing a wave of raw uncertainty that tore through nearby systems. Stabilizers flared and burned out. Two entire fleets, human and alien alike, ceased to exist, not destroyed but unwritten. The galaxy staggered. This was the moment everyone had feared. The moment where humanity would step forward again, take control, sacrifice itself, and save what remained. The elder observer felt the old instinct rise, deep, powerful, familiar. I will hold it, whatever it costs. He almost gave in. Then he felt something else. Hands. Not literal ones, but presence. Other minds, other species, anchoring themselves beside him. Not waiting for orders. Not asking permission. Standing. The shared network stabilized, not because it was strong, but because it was many. The ancient thing surged again, harder this time. Its influence spilled outward, attempting to fracture the alignment, to turn cooperation into noise. And something unexpected happened. It slowed, not stopped, but resisted. The thing encountered something it had never faced before. Not a single dominant certainty, like humanity's earlier constructs, but millions of small ones. Worlds choosing to exist. Species choosing to remember. Civilizations choosing meaning, even when it hurt. The ancient thing pushed, and found no single structure to consume. The pressure spread too thin. It recoiled slightly. That hesitation saved everything. The elder observer spoke, not aloud, but into the shared framework. Now, he said, this time, the plan did not come from humanity. It emerged. Across the galaxy, stabilizer arrays shifted from containment to redirection. Instead of resisting uncertainty, they guided it, channeling chaos away from inhabited regions, letting it burn out harmlessly in empty space. The ancient thing reacted instantly, sensing the change. It pushed harder, trying to force a collapse that would give it something solid to consume. Instead, it found itself drifting. For the first time since it had existed, there was nowhere obvious to feed. The universe did not fight it. It ignored it. That was the final lesson humanity had learned and never been able to apply alone. The elder observer felt the truth settle into place. We don't need to destroy it, he realized. We just need to stop centering everything around it. The realization spread. Human constructs disengaged from dominance patterns. They stopped forcing outcomes, stopped defining what must happen. They trusted the network. The ancient thing thrashed, confused. Its influence rippled, but found no purchase. Uncertainty scattered instead of concentrating. It began to fade, not vanish, not die, just lose relevance. The prison dissolved completely, and nothing catastrophic followed. The galaxy held. Not perfectly, not cleanly, but it held. The ancient thing drifted away, no longer contained, no longer pursued. For the first time, it encountered a universe that did not revolve around any single structure, not even itself. It moved on. Silence followed. Not the terrified silence of aftermath. A different kind. The kind that comes when something vast ends quietly. Across the galaxy, systems stabilized. Not restored to what they had been, but settled into what they now were. Some worlds were gone forever. Some histories would never fully align again. But reality stayed put. One by one, the shared alarms fell silent. Human sentinels began disconnecting, gently, carefully. Many dissolved entirely, their purpose complete. Others retreated into quieter roles, no longer burdened with holding everything together. The elder observer felt his form weaken. The strain of the final alignment had taken what little remained. A younger observer appeared beside him. "It's over," they said softly. The elder nodded. "It's begun," he corrected. The galaxy responded slowly. Not with worship, not with fear, with questions. What now? Who leads? What happens to humanity? Humanity answered with action, not declarations. They dismantled the closed zones. Not all at once, but deliberately. Human-only constructs were handed over, explained, adapted, or retired. Sentinels that remained became advisors, not guardians. Human fleets withdrew from prominent positions. Not vanishing, just stepping back. A council formed, not above the galaxy, but within it. Humanity held no permanent seat. Neither did any empire. Authority rotated. Responsibility was shared. It was inefficient. Messy. Humanity smiled quietly at that. On a quiet edge of space, far from councils and stabilizers, the elder observer chose his final act. He returned to a physical body, fragile, limited, real. The effort nearly destroyed him, but he persisted. He stood on the surface of a restored world, feeling gravity pull at him honestly for the first time in centuries. The sky was unfamiliar. That was fine. A human child approached him, born long after the return, long after the wars, long after the sacrifices that had shaped everything. "Are you one of the ones who saved us?" the child asked. The elder considered the question carefully. "No," he said at last. "I'm one of the ones who learned." The child frowned. Learned what? He looked up at the sky, at the stars no longer watched over by sentinels alone. "That power doesn't come from standing above everything," he said. "It comes from standing with it." The child thought about that, then ran off. The elder sat down, exhausted but content. Across the galaxy, humanity faded into the background, not forgotten, not diminished, just present. And that was the final, quiet truth that reshaped the universe. Humanity was never meant to rule it, never meant to guard it forever. They were meant to endure long enough to teach it how to stand on its own. And when the universe finally did, humanity let go.